and welcome to the Knowledge podcast series hosted by Broadcast and Film Magazine in collaboration with Adobe along with the Broadcast India show. Today we will be interviewing Jabeen Merchant, a prominent and well-known film editor from the Indian film industry. Jabeen has won major accolades and is a celebrated and acclaimed film and web series editor. Welcome, Jabeen, and thank you for taking out the time to be here with us today.
Thank you.
I would like to begin with a formal introduction of Jabeen. Jabeen Merchant is a film editor trained at the Film and Television Institute of India with a wide experience in the mainstream industry as well as the independent filmmaking community. Her range of work includes fiction features, documentaries, web series, television and short films. Her work has been seen in India and across the world in movie halls, festivals and streaming platforms. She has edited fiction feature films such as Lapata Ladies, Zwigato, NH10, Manorama 6 Feet Under, Anarkali of Ara and Tribanga. Award-winning documentaries including And Towards Happy Alleys, Invoking Justice, Kagas Ki Kashti, The Last Edios and Q2P. Web shows like Four More Shots Please Season 2 and The Janga Barukhas and short films like Bebak. Jabeen also teaches, consults on scripts and writes about cinema. Jabeen, it's a pleasure to start our Knowledge Series podcast. Let me begin by asking, can you tell us about your background and how you got started in video editing?
Yeah, so I, of course, as you just said in my introduction, I trained at the Film and Television Institute of India in Pune. And there I learned editing. I specialized in editing, but of course I also learned filmmaking in general, which I think is very important for anyone, any film practitioner. You have to have a rounded knowledge of everything. So I was very lucky to get that with my training. And the FTI training is largely fiction, at least in my time it was. So we went really in-depth into fiction film editing. But before I joined FTI, I had interned with the documentary filmmaker Anand Patwardhan. It was a very brief internship, but then, of course, it was the beginning of, an association that continued. So that was actually my introduction to editing, film editing and documentary in a sense, because he was editing his film Ram Ke Naam, which is quite a well-known documentary. So, yeah, I think that's where I started.
And that was, in which year was that?
So, I did this mass communications course, that was 1991.
Right.
91, I interned with Anand, and then I was at FTI 93, 94, 95.
So those days must have been those film days, being shot on Kodak. And
Yeah. We worked on 35mm film. Anand edited on 16mm. So, yeah.
So coming to the next question, what techniques do you use to ensure continuity and coherence in your edits? You have seen the transition from analog to digital, right?
So, of course, yeah. So, I think the main thing that I have found is that I have to get to know my material, first of all. Whether it's fiction or documentary, whether it's film or video or anything, a lot of editors will say this, a lot of, my contemporaries, they always say that we like to watch all our material, we like to watch all the rushes before we start cutting. I agree with that. My own personal technique is I can't just keep watching without intervening. It kind of, my fingers start itching, my brain starts itching. I want to just do stuff. So what I like to do is to start sorting, classifying, labeling, naming, saying, okay, this belongs here, this belongs there, this goes into this scene. And of course, there are different techniques when you're working with documentary where there is no script and there's a lot more footage, and with fiction. So you organize it in different ways. But what I find is while I'm organizing it, I'm entering the material, I'm watching it, I'm connecting with it. And I would say that when you start really paying attention to each shot, the rhythms within each shot, how what is being said, how characters are moving, what the camera is doing. And when you then, if you also internalize the script, I feel like, the shot starts speaking to you and it tells you how to cut.
Okay.
So that's what I do. And, like a lot of people, like one project I was working on, my assistant would keep saying, let's start cutting. And I was like, but I'm not ready to cut. I will cut. Don't worry. It'll come. Be patient.
Right.
Because what happens is, like, because technology is so much easier, we like to, we say, karke dekhte hain yaar. So you do it and then you think about it.
Right.
And then you say, okay, not this. Okay, let's do something else. Let's think. But I feel that if you think before you cut, you understand what you want to do, what you want to achieve, that always is the best way to approach.
Which project are you most proud of and why? I mean, which you thought was technically challenging and,
I mean,
you must have had immense projects like that, but whichever one you want to highlight.
So, I mean, it's really difficult. It's like asking a parent to choose among their children. I mean, of course, you can't really. But I mean, to name a few of the fiction feature films that people may have heard of.
Yeah.
So, of course, Lapata Ladies, where we had a lot of material, and although the story seems very simple, it took a lot of doing to get there.
Okay.
To achieve that, that narrative, to decide what stays in, what comes out, what is the timing. It's so important to get not only comic timing, but dramatic timing right.
Yeah.
And we were able to work as a team, the director, even the producer, editor, everybody collaborating in a very healthy way. That was really good. I mean, NH10 was a thriller.
Yeah.
So I had a great time working on that. Again, Navdeep Singh, the director, is a good friend, and so we were able to really collaborate and crack it, like make it really tight.
Does the genre of the film make it more challenging in terms of editing the project?
Like, again, going back to this, that once you've thought through what you want to do,
right,
the mechanics of doing it, of course, it takes time. Like I worked with the Dibakar Banerjee, whose film actually, Tees, which I'm very proud of, but did not get released. It hasn't yet been released. I hope it will. So Dibakar would always say to me, in the Indian industry, we don't spend enough time editing. We're in a great hurry to finish. Shooting ho gaya, ab release karna hai, kar do, ho gaya hai, kar do, chhod do. But when you give it time,
yeah,
and even when you think you finished, if you just pause and say, no, let me just consider it, you get better and better results.
Okay.
So I think the films where I've had that, been given that space to think,
right,
and where the director has been interested in the same thing, those have always been like the best.
The director is also a critical part of.
Naturally, yeah. I mean, it is the director's vision. We have to have a collective vision. We have to understand it together, and interpret it. So yeah.
So can you also describe your experience with sound design and audio editing, which is a critical part?
Yeah, I love doing sound design during editing.
Right.
And this comes from when I first began. When I came out of FTI, my first few jobs were with, there was TV and analog tape-to-tape editors. And in those days, people shot on Digibeta and then we edited offline on Umatic tape. So in those days, the editor did everything. In the editing room, I don't know, you might remember, we used to do dubbing.
Yeah.
We used to, the music guy would come to the editing room and bajao music and then give it to us and we would lay the music tracks. We would do the mixing, and slap the final mix onto the master, which was then sent for broadcast. So this idea that I have to do the sound comes from that. Actually, at FTI, there's a separate sound recording course. So editors don't get to do that. So I didn't learn it at film school, but as soon as I came out, I had to learn this. And it's great fun, it's like, and then I do find, even now, of course, our tools are better. So that tape to tape was very tedious to do.
Right.
Now with better tools, we are able to, do much more. It's more fun. You can download a whole lot of effects. You can clean up your noisy tracks. You can record scratch, voices where you think they're required. You can do all kinds of things very quickly and easily. And of course, get the exactly right background music, look for references. And I've always found that when I present a cut to the producer, director, to anyone who's going to watch it, if the sound is correct, they respond better to my edit.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's like, even if I know I've edited a scene well, if there's something off about the sound, if they can't hear it clearly, or if, they like that, if the sound timing is wrong, if you put the wrong music, some effect is like, jumping out, they don't receive it the way I intend to. So yeah, it's wonderful. I love doing that from the first cut. I'm already adjusting audio levels when I'm doing my first lineup. So
I remember Lagan, when it came with sync sound, created quite a major revolution in the film industry.
Sure.
So how do you look at sync sound? Does that really enhance the audio editing in some ways, or is it,
It is, of course, it does enhance because you get better sound.
Right.
But you have to work with it. Like, say if there's a scene like in NH10, where there's a scene where this honor killing is happening. So there were like so many characters in the frame. There's like the couple who's being killed. Then there's this bunch of goons who are, doing the killing. Like they've caught the couple and they're doing. And then there's Anushka Sharma and Neil Bhupalam, who are our main characters, who have also been caught and they're tied up and sitting near a tree. So each one of them had individual mics. Plus there were 2 booms. A huge number of... so I had like tracks. And each... the sound recording was excellent on location.
Right.
So I was able to, even though all of them were shouting at the same time, I was able to do that, like I just raised one track, reduced the other track. Do a rough thing, of course. I mean, the final sound design was its own thing. Right. But that kind of work, now there are cases where, the sound recordist will also give you a full mix track. Now, in that kind of situation, if you ignore the individual channels and you only work with the full mix, which sometimes editors are forced to do because there's no time and, jaldi karna hai. And in the old days, there was only a mix track, right? All this luxury we didn't have.
Yep.
So that makes you work quicker. But then when when people are watching the cut, they actually don't understand. All the voices are mixed up and they don't understand what's going on. So I do find that it can sometimes be a bit of hard work to do that, to separate the voices, to mute the tracks which are noisy. But that's critical for me to do.
So, as the editing style is changing due to change in production process equipment, do you see the need of new tools for editing, and how have you met these challenges, in terms of your career?
Right. So, I started with learning with 35mm film, 16mm film, even as we just talked about. And then, of course, there was just tape to tape. And then various, there was so many softwares in the beginning. Yeah.
Right.
Media 100, Lightworks. I started with FCP3 at one point, Avid, of course. And then, various versions. Now there's Adobe Premiere Pro, Resolve, so many things. And you're learning something every day. And I think that new technology is a good thing. Because it takes away some of that boring mechanical part. And you are able to explore more creative options. The tools allow you to think in a different way. So it's great. But at the same time, coming back to what I had earlier said, this has never intimidated me, because I really do feel that if you know what you want to do, you will always, learning a new machine is not a big deal, I mean, but if it's the other way around, where you've learned the machine, but kya karna hai, wohi pata nahi hai, then I think you're in trouble, so, yeah.
So you have been editing docuseries on Premiere Pro. Any recommendation, tips for new or young editors who are planning their first project on Premiere Pro? What do you think, about Premiere Pro?
I like Premiere Pro. I shifted to, I used to work a lot on Final Cut Pro. I, of course, started with Avid and other softwares, and I can still, as I said, one can work on any software. That's not the point, With Premiere Pro, what I found is while editing series that I've used the team projects feature a lot. Because when you're editing a series, you're working with, sometimes there are multiple editors. There are different machines running at the same time, So this team projects thing has been great. I haven't tried it on other softwares, but on Premiere, it's been great for me. And the other thing is with the series, if you're asking me for tips.
Yeah, absolutely, for the young generation,
So look, it's there's a lot of pressure. There's more pressure when you're working on a series because just think one feature film will be what, 2 hours, 2.5 hours nowadays, right? If you say, even if you have a 7-part series, 45 minutes per episode, you're doing 5.5 hours and you don't get that kind of time. Deadlines are very tight. Delivery pressures are much more. You're juggling multiple projects. So there's a lot of pressure. People feel anxious. People feel jaldi karna padega, and then, but I think it is still worth doing this. Coming back to what I said, that never mind how much pressure is there, just think it through. It's not a waste of time. It's a good use of time to just think it through, plan it, and then fatafat you can do. So that's the only thing I would say, that forget about the deadlines, just do it.
So I noticed that you also teach and consult on scripts and write about cinema.
Yeah.
So how important do you think it's to give back to the industry in terms of the teaching assignments that you take?
It's very important. I mean, we have to contribute our bit, right? Because I learned from other people who were generous in giving me their time and, sharing their expertise.
Right.
So I guess all of us have to give back, and it's really nice. And, I learn new things from students. When I teach them, they teach me. So it's great.
So I'll come to the last question. What do you think about artificial intelligence, generative AI, how that is going to transform in the editing sphere? How do you look at that part?
I look at it in a positive way. It is scary, of course. Any new technology is scary. And I mean, I think back to the time when, when the old timers, the generation before me, a lot of them were not able to cope when editing moved to computers.
Right.
When they had to leave the Steinbeck behind. A lot of people just said, we can't do this. What is this? This is not editing. Now, of course, AI is not exactly the same thing, but the principle is that it's another weapon in your arsenal. It's not something that's going to take away your job unless you let it. So if you can tame it, if you can understand how to use it and apply it as another tool, then I think, so I'm hoping, because every time I'm learning something new, even say without AI, every few months, every 6 months, some new version will come out, some new software, some new camera, suddenly your rushes have come in a different format, sound wale ne kuch aur kar diya hai, So we are learning all the time anyway. So, theek hai, we will learn one more thing.
Interesting. Let's see how the changes occur. So apart from editing, what is your other passion that you look up to? Is there anything?
Not film writing, but I like to write, and I'm trying to get back to that.
Okay.
Working on some stuff.
So writing as in the technology side or more on the creative side?
The creative side, or, just non-fiction stuff. So, been working on that, and Yeah, I mean, I like reading a lot. I like cooking a lot. So, but you just have to have time to do all that. I mean, with editing, like you have no time. So I'm hoping to be able to, do that, like manage time better and do a lot of interesting stuff.
Great. Thank you so much, Jabeen. And here's wishing you best of luck for all your future projects. And thank you for your time and this lovely podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much.